Thank you, Mr. Douglas, for that presentation. I don't believe in summarizing the presentation, unless if the audience want me to do that. But I think Mr. Katiba has given us the what, the why, that is the value, when, and how of sustainability reporting. And in my own presentation, what I tried to show is that sustainability is not the end. It is a journey that will lead us to the promised land. And each step we take matters. Each step we take is important. So with that little summary, I think I would like to call on the third presenter, Mr. Martin, to give his own presentation.
Okay, good morning. Just before lunch, I will keep it short and sweet. If I could have my presentation up and running. Okay. The title was on standardization, labels, and other tools that are there. I think there's a level above that, and that is legislation, laws regarding CSR. There's a trend in the world for countries to have laws on CSR. India is currently probably the most prominent one of them, where there's a law that companies that are publicly traded and have above a certain limit of net profit will have to pay 2% of that into CSR. Now the question is, how is this CSR determined? Is that having an event like this? Is that supporting the orphanage around the corner? Or is it dealing with the core material matters or issues that this organization has? And do we spend the money on that? So very much around, are we doing something outside or are we doing something inside in our organization? So exactly along this line, probably pretty similar, a definition of social responsibility or corporate social responsibility is equally difficult to develop as to find the secret of love. We tried in ISO, in the International Standards Organization, to create a definition on social responsibility which has some impact, as for example the European Union has published a so-called green paper in 2011, which more or less has the same definition as ISO has developed on what social responsibility is. In short, it says you are responsible for the impacts that you have on society, on environment, and of course on your economic development. So the three pillars plus taking the responsibility for these impacts. And Ini was saying yesterday we have some controversial debates. Until now it was very harmonious, but now I will start to get, at least to put a question, or not a question, but to challenge something that the lady from the central bank has said. Because I have banks as clients, and banks will tell me we are dealing with our social responsibility, we're looking at our resources, reducing water, electricity, etc. We deal with our employees, we give them training, you had gender equality, etc. In there. That's cool, that's very good. But what is actually the major impact of a bank? The major impact of the bank is not the bank building. That's just a building with offices and people working in there. The major impact of a bank is to whom do I give my money? To whom do I give a loan? So what impact do I have with giving a loan to a certain project? If I know that this project is going to destroy the environment, then my reducing of water consumption in my office building by 10% has absolutely no relevance. It is about the projects that I'm financing. So within the banking sector, very much, and there are other sectors as well that like to just look at within their factory gate or their office doors, but not beyond, and actually where their material impact lays. I just wanted to put that because I might not have the opportunity to ask a question then, and I wanted to put that on here. Because that is what social responsibility is all about, dealing with my material issues. Where are my impacts? And that was one of the big criticisms on GRI, the GR3 and etc., the G3, not addressing the material issues, which now they have successfully gotten over that hurdle. And I think it's a great evolvement in this process, because there was a lot of greenwashing simply going on. Now, from the level of laws, and I mentioned the Indian law with the 2%, which some people would probably claim is just an additional tax. If I'm just forced to spend another 2% of my net profits, then I'm not really addressing my material issues on social responsibility. I'm just putting money in a system, and whatever the state has taken already on taxes is getting another 2%. Okay, I wouldn't call it CSR, but that's the title of the law. So the level below is what we call soft laws, something that like standards. Standards classically are voluntary. Even if we call them norms or standards or whatever, the difference between a law and the standard is very simple. If I stand in front of a door and it says law on it, then I have to go through that door. If I don't do it, there are sanctions. I will be put in prison, I will have to pay a money fine, whatever. If I stand in front of a door and it says standard, it is my decision if I want to go through that door. There is no sanction. I will not be put in prison or not have to pay a money fine if I don't apply that standard in my organization. There might be a market force that drives me to use certain standards. My example is always if I want to produce screws that turn in to the left instead of to the right, what normally screws do, I'm free to do that. Nobody will put me in prison if I produce screws that turn in to the left. I will just have a hard time selling them on the market because nobody produces the parts where screws turn in to the left. So I'm still free to do so. If I feel I want to change the world and screws should in future turn in to the left, and I produce that, I'm free to do that. Nobody will sanction me for that, except maybe I go bankrupt. But so standards are simply everywhere. In this room here, we will find probably quite dozens of standards, from the height of the table so that the chair fits underneath, the width of the doors, the height of the stairs that we don't trip, etc., etc. Electrics are full of standards, etc. ISO standards are quite a few around. ISO, I think I have here, but I will get to what ISO is. What standards do is to help organize things, to repeatedly follow a process that will come to the same result. That is what standards should support you. So if I produce my screws and I produce them that turn in the right way, I can sell them globally because that is the international standard, how screws are produced, and they will fit in any possibility in Nigeria, just the same as in Austria or in Australia, which is always the big challenge to explain that I'm from Austria and not Australia. And we have no kangaroos in Austria. We have high mountains. So to organize things, to make things work, to be able to get into international trade, to get into the international supply chain, you should follow international standards. And that's why an organization like ISO exists. Like here, this is a simple example of an electronic toothbrush, which actually is a global product. It's manufactured in China, it's been designed in the US, there are parts coming from Europe, and it's sold all over the world. So to make all that happen, you need international standards to be able to have this global trade and this global production to work. Now, that's where we started from. ISO standards are mainly technical standards. Standards where something you can weigh, something you can measure, something you can really see this is 0.1 millimeter is something. But then ISO entered into areas that are not necessarily so easily measurable or weighable, like quality management. ISO 9001 you will probably know. It's one of the most known ISO standard. Is a management system standard on developing a process around quality management. And I think there are more than 1 million companies worldwide that are certified to ISO 9000, which sometimes creates the mistake that people believe every ISO standard has to be certified, which is actually completely wrong. There's only a small minority of ISO standards that are certifiable. I mentioned the technical standards. If something is 0.1 millimeter, it is something, then there's no certification for that. It's just simply how long, how heavy, whatever, that makes up a certain thing. So that's not certifiable. A lot of ISO standards are so-called terminology standards, meaning just defining a term. When we talk about something, it means this. There's no certification around that. So there are actually only very few standards certifiable, but there's a big understanding on the globe that ISO standards have to be certifiable, which I'm mentioning this specifically because it has a lot to do with the standard on social responsibility, ISO 26000, which is, again, a different kind of standard. So ISO is an organization founded in 1947, has its headquarters in Geneva, is around 18,500 international standards have been produced since then. It's a relatively small organization. There are only around 150 employees in Geneva, but there are national standard bodies in most countries of the world, and currently I think there's 163 countries that are members of ISO. Also, SON, the standards organization of Nigeria, is part of that and has also participated, for example, in the ISO 26000 process. And maybe we have the opportunity to, as we have Robert here from SON, to tell us a little bit about the status in Nigeria on the ISO 26000 standard. The majority of countries participating in the ISO process are, of course, developing countries, 2/3. It reflects the situation on the globe. The rest are developed countries, and there are some correspondent members or observers there, which is just a side note. Now, developing standards in social responsibility was a challenge for ISO because there was a big debate, should we enter this sphere? There are already a number of initiatives, documents in the area of social responsibility. Some of them are mentioned here. Global Reporting Initiative is one of them. The UN Global Compact was there already. There you see a number of other of these initiatives here. So why should ISO enter the social responsibility sphere? Very simply, what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a one-stop shop. We wanted to create one document that would cover what is the definition of social responsibility, what are the principles of social responsibility, what are the core subjects, the material issues you need to look at, and finally, how do you put that into practice, all in one document. So you don't have to draw on the UN Global Compact principles and have a separate document, and you have, for example, the GRI for the reporting tools, you have the different documents on the different subjects, on environment, on labor issues, etc. So we created memorandums of understandings with the UN Global Compact, with GRI, with the OECD, etc., to incorporate all these elements into the standard. So we would not compete with these documents, but actually incorporate them into the standard. It was a long journey, 10 years of work to create that standard. Started in 2000. It was published on the 1st of November 2010, and I call that my second birthday because I gained parts of my life back again because I was very much involved in developing that standard. Very shortly on why this is such an important process. It is probably the largest multi-stakeholder process in the area of social responsibility done. It's the largest exercise ISO has ever done for sure. 99 countries actively participated, more than 450 experts. Just to give you a comparison, I said 99 countries participated actively in developing the standard. ISO 9000, the quality management system standard, there were 35 countries that developed that standard. So we were 3 times the size. Our working group meetings have more experts participating than the ISO General Assembly. So just also showing how important it was taken by the countries and the people. The purpose is there are a lot of good initiatives in the world. The Charter of Human Rights, the ILO Core Labor Standards, UN Agenda 21, etc. On the other side, there's businesses and other organizations. And we need to bring these great international documents to these people and to the businesses. And ISO is the tool to do that because they are using ISO standards already. You don't have to explain who is the sender. You only have to start explaining what's the content because even small, medium-sized businesses know what ISO is because they're probably using some of these ISO standards. Now, beyond the life of standards, below that, there's also labels. There are, on packages, different labels proving this, that, and the other. What we have developed is a CSR label to prove on products. ISO 26000 is for organizations. So the company, the business has ISO 26000, has implemented social responsibility. But to have a label that would be on products so that the end consumer can take a conscious decision. I will take this product, which has a label that this product has been produced in a socially responsible manner rather than another product that does not have this label. So just to show you the label that is existing, and we're actually going to roll it out together with INI during the summer this year. We're bringing humans, environment together and with a message, be responsible, so addressing the consumer directly who sees this label, and this is then how it looks like. Corporate social responsibility certified. There's a process behind it, there's an audit behind it, and the whole project is based on ISO 26000 to ensure that it's also linked with what is happening on the international level. It is linked with ISO as the owner of the ISO 26000 standard, and so on. Just to finalize, then there's also the level below to use for organizations like softwares. I just highlighted here one, also completely based on ISO 26000 to allow for even small, medium-sized enterprises, the bakery around the corner, which is my favorite example, to actually implement social responsibility. They don't need a consultant for that. They don't need to read thick books. Don't even have to, they just follow what this software has laid out to ensure that they can actually do these things. Because the whole aim of ISO 26000 is to bring social responsibility into the broad field of businesses. the broad, that what also Nigeria and probably most of Africa is made up of small and medium-sized enterprises. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And you get kind of report then where your gaps, where you have any thing to continue on. And that's a very short overview from laws on social responsibility down to how a bakery around the corner can actually put that into practice without having to take big budgets into its hands, because probably that will not exist. But there should be the wish and the will and the opportunity to actually implement social responsibility into any kind of organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for that presentation. So he has taken us around the management system standards, the ISO standards, the ones that need to be certified and the ones that mostly are not certifiable. And then maybe I need to clarify the question or the comment he made about the banks concentrating on the building. I think you need to appreciate, I was only presenting the implication for Central Bank of Nigeria, which is a regulator, and it's not a commercial bank. But if you can see, the principle 1 is on managing the environmental footprint and social footprint of their businesses and investments. So the lending activities of the bank, that is principle number 1. And that is because it is important. We need to be responsible in dealing with who we give money to. You cannot lend money to somebody and he goes and impact the environment. You should be responsible for that. You should be accountable for that. And also as central bank also, we are also going to look at greening our procurement process. That is doing responsible procurement. Our suppliers, our subcontractors, we are going to look at what they do, how they impact the environment before we continue to do business with them. So that's just by way of clarification. And I think it's now time for questions. And who has the microphone?
Let me seize this opportunity to thank the panel, and it's been a very exhaustive topic that you have taken, and I think you have really done justice to it. It's not a question though, I'm just going to, it's a contribution. My name is Robert Oki from SON, Nigerian expert on ISO 26000. I just want to pick on Douglas a little bit when he talked about GRI. GRI was a part of the organization, international organization that contributed in the elaboration of ISO 26000. And it's a reporting initiative. But I was just going to add that before going to GRI, an organization has to have a system in place. And this system in place, there are going to be procedures. And what are you going to report? You're going to report the system or the procedure that you have followed to achieve a particular desired, to achieve a desired result, which the GRI is looking at. And in a nutshell, that is what ISO 26000 is talking about. 26000 has given you this platform for an organization to have a basis to prepare yourself so that you could give this report. And this report that the organization is going to give will contribute to sustainable development, including health and welfare of society. And the ISO 26000 in its application will take into account the expectations of the stakeholders. It will also be in compliance with applicable laws and consistent with international norms of behavior. And I may have to point out that this is the only standard that has that clause in it, that has a clause that it has to be applicable to international laws and consistent with international norms and behavior. And the fourth and most importantly, is that it also will have to be integrated throughout the organization and practiced in its entirety. So when you put this in place, we are talking about achieving a sustainable development. And having said that, Nigeria has decided to be a part of those international body that wants to also be sustainably developed, if I can put it that way. Presently, we have about 74 countries that have adopted ISO 26000. And we have about 17 countries that are about adopting it too. And thank God, Nigeria is going to be among them. And then there are 13 countries that are also undecided. Our neighbors like Algeria, Bolivia, Ghana, Japan, Kenya, Korea, Republic, Malawi, Spain, Mexico, Tanzania, Uganda, they've just adopted theirs about a few months ago. So what I'm trying to say is there's a growing interest in ISO 26000 worldwide. And this growing number of countries that want to adopt these standards are mostly from developing countries. So Nigeria has to follow suit. And it will be pleasing to announce that Nigeria has tried very much to follow as much as it could within the constraint of the resources available to Standard Organization of Nigeria. And in order to effect this, SON has a knowledge partner, TPC, that is actually working effectively with SON for the adoption of this ISO 26000, so that we'll be among the international community also. Because very soon, businesses will be measured, or successes of business or your GRI report will be measured on your social responsibility commitments. How far have you been able to meet up with ISO 26000? And all that you need to do to meet up your GR report are all in ISO 26000. So that makes a whole lot easier for you. If you have to